So earlier today, the news broke that the Supreme Court will now allow President Trump's transgender ban to begin. Now, that's definitely unfortunate news. That's terrible news for the thousands of people that are serving in the military that are openly transgender. Now, the justices voting 5-4, of course, you had the conservative justices, basically put on hold a lower court decision that blocked the administration's ban from taking effect. Now, of course, you have the 4 liberal justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan, that who dissented against this, which of course leaves the conservative justices, including the two Trump appointees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. So we can see where they stand on transgender rights. They apparently don't agree with transgender rights, which is disastrous for when it comes to equality. Now, the main case that was argued by proponents of these families and these transgender service members is that, look, if you do this, you're going to violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. In fact, according to these court filings on behalf of current and prospective military members, quote, this case is about whether men and women who want to serve in the United States Armed Forces to protect our country and who are able and otherwise qualified to do so should be barred from military service because they are transgender. And that's exactly what it was about. There's no actual physical good reason to bar them from being able to serve, as subsequent studies have found out. And so, yes, that is a violation of equal protection. You are basically singling these people out for being transgender, for being openly transgender. So that's a big problem, right? Now, unfortunately, the hateful people in the administration, they didn't agree with that, and they referenced a 2018 Pentagon report that said that, quote, having transgender troops risks unnecessarily adding to the challenges faced by leaders at all levels, potentially fraying unit cohesion and threatening good order and discipline. Now, I've got to note that this has been in effect since 2016, and their argument is, I mean, it may fray unit cohesion. It may add some unnecessary risk to the challenges faced by leaders. So, of course, they couldn't point that out and all that stuff. Well, okay, we've had 2 years since they were allowed to be open. If there were a problem, wouldn't we have known that by now? Wouldn't that be apparent? You could just look at what's going on and say, see, look at that. I guess it didn't work. Boy, we gave it a good try, but it turns out that maybe having transgender people in the military is not a good idea. But there is no evidence. There is no evidence that it does any of that. But their argument boiled down to, and I think, and this is what a lot of these arguments kind of come down to, is like, we don't think it'll work out because, well, for one, these people, well, they're going to get bullied, and they're going to come after them, and they're going to affect their mental health and unit cohesion. So you finally, you suddenly find out the person serving next to you wants to be a woman, and then, I can't handle that. So their whole argument is, we're not going to be able to stop our soldiers from acting out and acting badly towards their fellow service members who are transgender. And keep it real, that's what it's about. And so, guess what? We're just better off banning them. Taking away their liberties, right? Their ability to serve in the military. And look, we have an all-volunteer military. So it's not as if these people are being drafted. No, these people are voluntarily going into the military, voluntarily serving their country. And still you want to say, nope, you can't do it because you're transgender. Now, again, that's the same argument that a lot of people use against trans people and used to use against gay people coming out. They would point out, oh, well, trans people have such a higher rate of suicide. Now, that's absolutely true. Now, why is that? Well, it's not because there's something mentally wrong with them or that they're somehow broken, right? No, it's because of how society and other people treat them. If you bully someone so badly because of who they are to the point that they want to harm themselves, well, that's not on them. That's on you, buddy. You built that. So that's your fault. Because you couldn't leave people alone on a decision that doesn't impact you in the slightest. So please, spare me that ridiculous argument. It makes no sense. Moving on. Bloomberg also noted that the administration's policy, getting into some of the specifics here, is less absolute than Trump's original tweet. Which, by the way, don't you find it insane that the president will just issue a decree by tweet? Like, what is this? I mean, it's like a monarchy, but on Twitter. It's a Twitterocracy. A tweetocracy. I'll come back with that. We'll see which one you guys like better. But that's, I mean, essentially it's what it is. He's decreeing via tweet. And that actually caused Mattis, who was no longer in the administration, by the way, to be like, whoa, wait a minute. You didn't tell us about this. Well, now we can't actually do it. Now we actually have to look into this. And so they looked into it, and guess what they found? Well, basically, to go back to what they found, let's go to the argument, right? Now, they, again, want to make the argument that transgender people are medically and mentally unfit, so they can't serve. Now, one of the reasons they point out is, well, a lot of these people have something wrong with them, this gender dysphoria, right? Now, gender dysphoria is classified as a medical term for a conflict between one's physical gender and the gender with which the person identifies. And so one would think, well, I mean, if you're transgender, then obviously you have to have gender dysphoria, and that should be a disqualifying term. Now, is that true? Well, according to a RAND study done in 2016, of the estimated 1,300 to 6,000 transgender people who were on active duty, and cross-referencing that with the Mattis report, that found that 900 people were identified to having gender dysphoria. That's people who are out in the military. So they're basically open with their transgender identity. Only 900 of them have dysphoria. So if you want to make the argument, right, that those 900 people represent the other 6,000, or going to the other study of the military that found that there were almost 9,000 people identified as transgender, if you want to use that to disqualify everybody, that's absurd. That's absurd. So, no, let's not, like, we're going to have a discussion on transgender people not being fit in the military when a majority of them, a vast majority of them, are fit mentally and physically to be able to serve in the armed forces if they want to. Okay, well, apparently we're going to have that discussion. Now, the Bloomberg report, by the way, talked about, and this is what's, all this is related to how messed up and how ridiculous this decision is, and not based on facts it is. Now, the administration asked the court to take the step of bypassing the federal appeals court level directly and deciding whether trial judges were right to block the ban. So, basically, they wanted to do an end run in order to basically ram this through, right? This decision, make a decision now. U.S. Solicitor General Noel Francisco told the justices the issue was one of, quote, imperative public importance, thus warranting special fast-track consideration. He said immediate review was needed to ensure that the injunction does not remain in place any longer than necessary. Noel Francisco, of course, Noel Francisco, of course, is basically representing the administration position. So, of course, that's the position that they are taking right now, is that we need to hurry this up. Let's go. Let's get these transgender people out of the military, which again is pretty ridiculous, right? And what they do is that in order to do this, they're making it sound like this is an emergency, but based on what we just talked about, it's not an emergency at all. So why are they rushing it through? It's a good question. There's one more piece of information here. According to Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson, arguing in court papers, quote, openly transgender persons have been serving in the military for 2.5 years, and leaders from each branch have testified that their service has not at all harmed the military. So he also continues by saying, although the government cries that the sky is falling, it has offered no evidence to support its dire claims. You know why? Because there is no evidence. There's no evidence that says that allowing trans people to serve harms the military whatsoever. If it had been a problem, then why are the hundreds of already transitioned soldiers already grandfathered in by this decision? I mean, come on. So you already have a lot of people that have undergone transition that are already in and that are not affected by this. They can stay in the military, right? It's just preventing new people from coming in the military and then transitioning, or newly transitioned people from joining the military. Why is it leaving the other? If it's such a harm, well, we know the answer to that. We know the answer. Like most social issue policies made by the administration, and this is all on the social issues, this is basically social conservative red meat. This is also a monument, I think, to hate and intolerance. Keep it real. That's what this is about. This is about basically pandering to the hard right-wing conservative evangelical base that hates transgender people, and of course tries to get, and also I think it's a distraction from Giuliani sticking his foot in his mouth, the shutdown, which he's taken a beating on, and all the other disasters that are happening concurrently at this time. So I think the conservative court was like, well, we're conservative, we hate transgender people, so we'll just let it go and we'll give Trump a solid. You don't think that's what it's about? You don't know politics. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.